just down along the falls road, it's where I long to be. Lying in the dark with the Provo Company, a comrade on me left, another one on me right, a clip of ammunition for me little Armalite.
And welcome to AZCactusTac. Today we got a really special rifle on Will It Fire. This is the AR-180 semi-auto, also known as the AR-18 if you have it in full auto. Government doesn't trust me to have that much fun, so we have an AR-180. This is pre-ban, so meaning that this was in the market before 1989. Probably on this one, I think I couldn't get an exact date, but probably between 83 and 86. Just a touch about the AR-180. If you're a big AR guy, you know about this. If you collect ARs, you definitely know about this. This is a really historical rifle, although not that many people have heard about it. So why is it so interesting and why is it so cool? Well, this is an Armalite rifle. Many of you know that Armalite designed the M16, and AR stands for Armalite rifle, not for assault rifle. Armalite, after they designed the M16, they licensed that intellectual property off. At the time they were calling it AR-15. The Army designated that the M16, but they licensed all that intellectual property 100% to Colt. And as a result, as Colt knew how to market, they knew how to sell, they worked that into the government, they got the M16 program going, and that's a whole nother probably series of 50 videos on that whole thing, and there are lots of people that have done it. It's a fascinating story, it really is. So I encourage everyone to go and sort of learn about the M16 and the development of that and how that really became into America's rifle, the AR-15. But this rifle, so Armalite was basically looking, you know, they had to pay the light bill. So around 1963, 1964, Eugene Stoner is still with them. That's the designer of the AR-15 and later the M16. He was working on the next new thing for Armalite, which was a really low-cost battle rifle, a very low-cost stamped steel rifle that they could sell into third world countries. What does that sound like? Sounds like the AK. That's why I sort of call this rifle America's OG AK, man. But they were looking at stamped steel as a very low cost way to produce these and sell it into markets that were looking for cheap, you know, rifles at the time. So he was designing what was called the AR-16 at that time, which was basically chambered in 7.62 by 51. It was stamped steel. And one of the coolest things that he was working on was the operating system. And that operating system is a short stroke gas piston system. And so this rifle, while not commercially successful in the marketplace, the design on that short stroke gas operating system literally went on to revolutionize, I would say, firearms across the board. So modern firearms that use that same system today, the SCAR, the Bren, the Steyr AUG, the Tavor X95, and I'm sure, I think the HK G36, if I'm mistaken on that, please let me know. I know that HK also used it. So a lot of well-known rifles use that system that first appeared here, man. Now, Eugene Stoner borrowed heavily from the short stroke design developed by David Williams, AKA David Carbine Williams. Again, we're getting back, this was just a few, you know, less than 20 years after World War II, so a lot of this work was still fresh. You can read all about Carbine Williams. I'd recommend watching the movie with Jimmy Stewart. You don't know who Jimmy Stewart is, Google it. So anyway, he's designing that, but then he decides to, you know, cut bait and leave. And so hence they had this design. They certainly saw the success of the 5.56, and so a guy named Arthur Miller, who was on the design team, came and sort of took the work on the AR-16 and adapted it to be chambered in 5.56, and hence that was called the AR-18. And the AR-18, again, not a whole lot of commercial success, went into production by Armalite themselves. They actually made about 2,000 to 4,000 rifles. I can't remember the exact count. But then they looked to license that manufacturing. They were a design company. They wanted to license that manufacturing, so they licensed it to a Japanese company called Howa. Howa ran with it from, I think, about 72 to maybe I don't know, 79, somewhere there. I'm going to get my dates mixed up, but at the end of the day, the Japan government said, hey, you can't, export rifles into countries that are at war or something along those lines. Of course, the U.S., I think at the time, was at war, in Vietnam, and hence they needed to get out of that business. So they exited probably around 74. I think there was a 5-year lag. And then a company named Sterling came along out of England, and Sterling took on the license, and they ran it from, roughly, I think, 79 all the way through 85 or so. So if I have these dates off, I'll put the corrections as much as I know, or feel free to comment. But you sort of get the general idea. There are about 21,000, 22,000 rifles produced in general. Of that, between 2,000 to 4,000 were in the full auto version, and the rest were in the semi-auto. Sterling had the lion's share of the manufacturing at about 12,000 rifles, and I think Howa maybe had 4,000 to 6,000, and then Armalite themselves had about 4,000. So that's sort of the quick and dirty hitchhiker's guide to the rifle here. It's also very famous in history. If you know about the Troubles in Ireland, the Irish Republican Army, their battle for independence from the British, that was a big deal, especially during the early 80s, late 70s and early 80s. This rifle was imported into them. This was their primary arm. I'll play some music in this video, but this rifle has a lot of songs written about it. It's really part of folklore from that era. So if you don't know about the Troubles, research it, Google it. It's a fascinating time of history, and many say some of those issues are coming back as a result of England leaving the European trade alliance. So who knows, we may see some more poop start to fall. Hopefully not, but anyway, I have it. This is part of the collection. I decided to get it. I'm not a big AR collector, but I do collect pre-ban Cold War era rifles. You could say this is not really a battle rifle, which I have normally focused on. It is not, but it's a rifle that is sort of unique in a lot of ways aside from that short stroke piston, and we'll talk about that after we see if it'll fire. So let's sort of chamber around, let's get some ears on, and let's see if this bad boy will shoot some rounds through it. So I do have original Armalite mags. The mags are almost as expensive as the goddamn rifle. I've read a lot about these things, and you can still buy AR-180 mags out on the market to a day, but I hear that they just don't work as consistently or as reliably as the originals. I've heard that the originals had their issues too, so we shall see. But I do have a series of original mags, and we'll see what happens. So let's see if we can get a round in there. I'm interested. Yep, it definitely chambered. Okay, we got it on safe. Put it on to fire, and let's send some downhill. Let me turn on this. I added this red dot. It's something just to modernize it. Okay, so let's get some rounds down, man. Will it fire? Up. Okay. All right, we're definitely having some feeding issues. It's firing, but it is not feeding. So let's do this. Let me lock this back. We did have some magazine issues on that first. It did fire, so I'm going to count that as a success. I did read somewhere that on some of these magazines, on the commercial market, there was a limiter put in them, which if you had anything more than 10 rounds, it caused some feeding issues. I don't know the full story on that. I'll have to break that magazine apart. Let's try this. We'll see if we have the same issue. All right, let's see if we can get through a full mag with this. All right, success, man. Success. Okay, this magazine release is definitely takes some pressure to get down. But man, I got to tell you, the recoil on this feels fantastic. It's a very light recoiling rifle. I mean, just as good as anything you'd find on the modern market. So super light, and there is no buffer tube, so this is a folding stock. So let's go take a closer look at it and talk a little bit more about the rifle. It's the magazine that came with it right here. It is an original mag, and then I bought this, and this said it was a factory sealed mag. So definitely looks different. This worked flawlessly. And again, I'm going to break this apart and see if there's anything inside here that shouldn't be in. But when we had this on the bench, it looked like this thing had never been fired because there was no mark on like the bolt. Again, I always get my terminology mixed up, guys. I apologize. But where the piston hits that bolt carrier, there wasn't any mark on it. So if it has been fired, it hasn't been fired a lot, and definitely not in a long time. So that second mag worked great. So while, this rifle wasn't a commercial success, it certainly has its legacy in the short stroke gas piston system. But there's some other really cool things about this rifle that I would say were very innovative that we take for granted today. One, this is a folding stock. It was probably one of the first rifles on the commercial market that had a folding stock. You really couldn't find those if you were going into your your sporting goods store to buy a rifle. No one had need of a folding stock, right? The other thing is it used the polymer. It brought that into the market too. You could make an argument that it was an ambidextrous safety. So it had a safety on both sides. I mean, this is a much easier safety to work versus this one, but it still was ambi. So again, that was something very new and out into the marketplace. The other sort of cool thing, again, aside from the materials, is if you look at this pick rail and you see that little bar right there, that basically, if you press in, that pulls off, and you see this sort of, I don't know, a tongue and groove type of system. So this thing was designed to accept an optic. And again, in the late 60s, early 70s, man, you just didn't have that type of thinking out on the market, and that you have now, right? So I actually bought this just to give me a pick rail, and it works with that old system that I can get a pick rail and attach a modern optic to it. So even again, this rifle's definitely 40 years plus old. I'm able to put a modern optic on it. So very innovative design for its day. Super lightweight. Again, using these advanced materials. Again, this was, state of the art, man. This was coming off of the space program, right? We had all of these new composite materials, and they were finding their ways into rifles as a way to reduce weight. Anyway, this stock folds. There's the catch. There's a locking system on it. I have heard that you have to sort of be careful. Some of these might fall off. So I got to keep an eye, rather these right here. You can see there's a little retainer pin on them. So I just have to watch those and make sure I don't lose those. Again, I like to fire my collectible rifles. We've got a, mark on the barrel here. Got a little 3-prong flash hider. But all in all, I have to tell you guys, the recoil on this thing was just awesome. Really, really cool. All right, so let's load up another magazine. Let's see if we can get through another mag without any issues. Okay, so basically the assault weapons ban of '89 sort of killed this off. Sterling went on, they took the operating system, that short stroke gas piston, and I believe they used it to develop the British bullpup. I forget the name of that, it's pretty well known. Forgive me guys, I'll see if I can find it and add it on to the top here. But they went on and they developed additional weapons based on that operating system. There was an attempt to revive the AR-180 in the early 90s that didn't meet with a whole lot of success. And the Armalite brand name was sort of sold off to, I believe, a company in the Philippines. So that was pretty much it. But the AR-80, it lives. I think it lives under the Brownells brand, the BRN 180. Which is a short stroke operating system modern AR-15. I I don't know, I've never shot that rifle, but I hear a lot of people just love it. It's doing very well within the market. I think they just came out with a new version this year in 2025. So, you know, it still lives, man, and it's actually seems to be doing well. But anyway, this old girl, I gotta tell you, I just wish I could share with you how good it is to fire this, how good it feels. I mean, there's no, you know, there's no buffer tube going into the stock. It feels great. It's really a dream to shoot. So let's go ahead and put in this last magazine. Let's see if we have any issues with this. And let's make sure we got it on. Okay, let's go. I gotta tell you, it is such a dream to shoot. So anyway, this episode of Will It Fire? You're damn right she will. Again, I don't think it's been fired a whole lot, if at all. I do like shooting my collectibles, and I'm really happy to have this, really blessed to have this in the collection. And you know, we'll get out here, we'll zero this optic, and maybe I'll take it to a couple of competitions, maybe Lethal Weapons in 2025 will bring this bad boy out, huh? All right, guys, thanks for joining, and wish everyone the best.
Armalite rifle, big snarl ray. Armalite rifle, they use it every day. Breaks down easy.
See how that works?
A child could carry it, do it no harm. Armalite rifle and the Holy Trinity used against you, like Irish jokes on the BBC.